It's Rick and Sasha with George Wilborn. All right, we're talking to Mayor Byron Brown. He's the mayor of the city of Buffalo, New York. Now, Buffalo's been in the news because you've probably seen the video of the elderly man being pushed by police officers in front of City Hall. And as he fell back, the back of his head began to bleed. So this man's in the pool of his own blood. We're here to talk to the mayor who runs that city. Mayor Byron Brown, how are you?
It's good to be with you. Thank you for having me on.
I know it's been a long few days, so sometimes we just gotta exhale.
Right about that. It has been a long few days.
Well, listen, Mayor Brown, your city has been in the headlines a lot. First with the elderly man that was pushed down on the ground, Marty Gungino. What's going on with him? How is he doing? And we heard that 2 of your police officers were suspended. Give us an update on that, please.
Yeah, there's still an investigation going on. When the police commissioner, Byron Lockwood, and I saw the video of the response of the emergency response team to that situation, and the gentleman was pushed, he went down, hit his head very hard. It was a frightening situation. The commissioner immediately suspended the 2 officers without pay and opened up an internal affairs investigation. The next day, the district attorney, the Erie County District Attorney, John Flynn, charged both officers with a D felony. There will be a court process now, and that's where things are.
Mayor Byron, I want to rewind and just ask you, the elderly gentleman that was pushed down, how is he doing? Because the last thing I heard, he was in serious condition.
He was in serious condition. He is now conscious. He's alert. He's been receiving medical attention. There's some reports coming out of the hospital that he will have a full recovery.
Great.
Certainly blessing to hear that. Never want to see anything like that. Seeing anyone hurt at any time is painful. Obviously, as mayor, for me, seeing my police officers involved in a situation like that is very distressing and very disappointing.
And one of the main questions is, have you actually, as the mayor of Buffalo, Byron Brown, have you actually had a chance to talk to him? Let's talk about that when we come back in 10 minutes. It's Rick and Sasha with George Wilborn. It's Rick and Sasha with George Wilborn. We're talking to Mayor Byron Brown in Buffalo, New York. This is where we saw the elderly man pushed down by police and his head was bleeding. He was in serious condition. Mayor Brown, have you had a chance to talk to him yet?
I have not had a chance to speak with him yet. I did make a request to go and visit him in the hospital. Unfortunately, because we're still in this COVID-19 period with the global health pandemic that we're facing, the hospital could not allow me to come and visit. I am hoping at some point to have a direct conversation with Mr. Gugino.
Okay.
Mayor Byron, it was a little disturbing to me watching other officers and first responders applauding these 2 gentlemen for what they did, because that's how I interpreted what I saw. Did they resign from their jobs? What is that? Because I'm a little confused. Did they resign from their jobs totally, or is it something else going on with that?
They didn't resign as police officers. They were pressured by the union, which led them to resign from their roles as members of the emergency response team. The emergency response team is a specialized, well-trained unit of the Buffalo Police Department that is trained to address protests, mass demonstration situations, riot situations. And what the police union did, which I think was unconscionable, was put out a bulletin to all of those officers saying to them, if you continue to perform your duties as a member of the emergency response team, the union will withdraw all support for any defense that you need if something goes wrong in the performance of those duties. These are all dues-paying members of the union. That was wrong. This union is on the wrong side of history. The Buffalo Police Benevolent Association has been a barrier to reform. has been a barrier to improving policing. And this was another classic example of how the union can be a barrier to good policing, not only in the city of Buffalo, but in communities all across the country.
Now, Mayor, we know that this isn't the only issue when it comes to police brutality that Buffalo has had. There's also a case with Miles Carter. He was a man who was being interviewed on live TV and tackled by Buffalo law enforcement. And he wasn't just there protesting the death of George Floyd. He was also protesting another man who was a victim of police brutality, Quentin Settles. We want you to talk about that when we come back. It's Rick and Sasha with George Wilborn. It's Rick and Sasha with George Wilborn. We're talking to Mayor Byron Brown. He's the mayor of Buffalo, New York. And recently we saw the elderly man pushed by police officers crack the back of his head open. He was in serious condition. I guess he's doing better. We don't know. Also, there's a case of Miles Carter. He was on live television, tackled by police officers for whatever reason, but he was not just there protesting the death of George Floyd. He was also protesting another man who was a victim of police brutality a couple of months ago by the name of Quentin Settles. This stuff is happening far too often, and you can't lie about it because it's all on video. Mayor Brown.
My response is that it shouldn't be happening. One of the reasons that we equipped all police officers in the city of Buffalo with body cameras, this was a national call. It's a call in the city of Buffalo. And we equipped our officers with body cameras to be able to catch incidents like this, to be able to be a powerful reminder to our officers that you have to be professional in your treatment of citizens. Even when affecting an arrest, you have to be professional, because not only is the city watching, the public is watching.
Right.
Mayor Byron, what communications are you having with your chief of police on making change in the police department after seeing these videos and knowing what's been happening in the past? Because that's where it starts. We have to start making policy changes.
Absolutely. Change is very important to us. We've implemented a number of changes during my time as mayor of the city of Buffalo. The public is calling for change. We're listening to the community. I have recently been meeting with community activists throughout the city of Buffalo, across our city. We are going to be rolling out a list of additional reforms shortly that are coming not only from our government, but coming from the voices of the community, which is so critically important. Talk to the commissioner every day, multiple times a day. He is an African American who came up through the ranks of the police department as a police officer. He actually protested against police brutality, racism in the police department, in the police union. He has been a strong advocate for reform, and I will work with Commissioner Lockwood and the members of our community to continue to reform our police department, just like we did when we eliminated the 60-hour credit requirement that was a barrier to Black and brown people even being able to take the police exam. Now we have a record number of police officers that are African American and other minorities. We are at the highest percentage of Black and other minority police officers in the history of our city, but that's not enough. We must do more, and we have committed to working with the community on many additional reforms, and we will not let the police union, the Police Benevolent Association in Buffalo, continue to be a barrier to reform. We're going to say to them very strongly that they have to be on the right side of history. They have to work with us on reforms, or we will pursue legal means to try to get those reforms pushed forward in our city.
Mayor, sound bites are easy to take, and I guess if you take them in order, people see just that and they take it for what it is. You said that you're not calling for the firing of the two police officers. Exactly what do you mean by that? Because people take that sound bite and we want to know what's before that and after that.
Police officers have very difficult and dangerous jobs. They need, like every other citizen, has to have due process. So just like when people are arrested in our community, I try to never jump to conclusions and respect the right of people who are arrested to have due process. And when police are arrested, as was happened in this case, respect their right to due process. This is going to be in the courts. The courts will decide about the charges that were brought against these officers and certainly want to see that court process play itself out and not jump ahead of the decision of the courts.
Mayor Byron, what can be put in place as a policy right now to protect the good cops when they see something is going on and not be considered a snitch and even their lives be put on the line because they have told what is going on out there? Something has to be put in place where they could report and be protected.
You're absolutely right, Sasha. In our use of force policies in the Buffalo Police Department, we have a duty to intervene clause in our policies. There is a requirement for police officers in the city of Buffalo, when they see something happening wrong, to intervene. Members of the community have called for that to be placed in law, to make that a local law, just not a policy, but to make it a local law. So we will work with the community and our city council to make our duty to intervene policy an actual local law.
More with Mayor Byron Brown of Buffalo, New York. It's Rick and Sasha with George Wilborn. It's Rick and Sasha with George Wilborn. We're talking to Mayor Byron Brown of Buffalo, New York. This is where the elderly man was pushed down on the ground by police officers. I mean, this ongoing conversation about police brutality. This is the reason why people are out there protesting in the first place. They're in front of City Hall in Buffalo. They pushed this man down, and his head cracked open. I mean, it wasn't a pretty thing. He's an elderly man, and he was in serious condition. I guess he's doing better. Mayor, you said you haven't seen him yet. But let's just say these names of recent victims of police brutality in Buffalo, New York. Quentin Settles, Miles Carter, Martin Giorgino, and the millions of people watching around the world, and of course, right there locally in Buffalo. If these men were right here in front of you, what would you say to them?
I would say to them what we say to our police officers, that police should not have put their hands on them. We expect our police officers to perform their duties with professionalism. We expect them to treat all members of our community respectfully. People will say that there are times when people are not complying and police are put in the unfortunate and difficult circumstances where they have to put their hands on people. But our police department teaches our officers to use restraint and common sense in all of these situations and to look for other ways to diffuse situations and not to have to put their hands on members of the community, even members of the community who they believe might have been involved and engaged in crimes of different sorts.
Mayor Byron Brown, Buffalo, New York, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you.
Thank you, Rick and Sasha. I appreciate you giving me this opportunity to be on with both of you.
Thank you. We'll see you soon.
I hope so.